The meaning of most things can only be understood within the context of a story. So, the way we understand human life depends on what conception we have of the human story. The scientific story of the universe begins with a miracle. But where is the story going? In other words, where is the story being directed to? What if the author of the story of the universe wrote himself into the story to tell us that very thing? I used to float, now I just fall down. I used to know, but I'm not sure now. What I was made for. What was I made for? These are the opening lyrics to Billie Eilish's song, What Was I Made For? Do you relate to the sentiment of these lyrics? I spent my teenage years chasing a dream. I sacrificed 7 years of my life, and one day I suddenly stopped. At that moment, when I lost the dream that gave me meaning, purpose, hope, and identity, is when I asked myself the question, why am I here? What is my purpose? People tend to tackle this question in one or two ways. The first kind of person looks inside of themselves to create their own purpose based on whatever gives them meaning, hope, and identity. The second kind of person searches outside of themselves to discover the real, tangible purpose of life. In other words, the true purpose of life. The first kind of person is searching for comfort. The second kind of person searches for truth, regardless if it gets them comfort. As popular philosopher and author C.S. Lewis once noted, if you search for truth, you may find comfort in the end. But if you search for comfort, you'll get neither truth nor comfort. Only soft soap and wishful thinking to begin, and in the end, despair. Alright, so why do humans exist? What does it mean to be human? These are questions of meaning and purpose. So let's discover the truth of these questions using the same tools we use to discover the meaning and purpose of everything else. Answering one big question will give us the answer to all of our other questions. Is there a true story of the entire universe? Because the meaning of most things can only be understood within the context of a story. So let's say you're standing at a bus stop and a man next to you says, the Latin name of the common wild duck is Histrionicus. We know what the man is saying, but we have no idea why he's saying it in the first place. To discover the meaning of his action, we need to place it within a broader story. 3 stories, for example, could give meaning to this action. Perhaps the man has mistaken the man standing next to him for another person he saw at the library yesterday, who asked him, do you know what the name is for the common wild duck? Or the man has just come from a session with a therapist who has been helping him deal with his painful shyness. The therapist has been urging him to speak to strangers. When the man asked the therapist what he should say, the therapist responded, oh, anything at all. Or the man is a Soviet spy who has arranged to meet his contact at the bus stop, and the code that will reveal his identity is the statement about the Latin name of the common wild duck. The point is this: the meaning of the encounter at the bus depends on which story shapes it. In fact, each unique story will give the event a different meaning. British theologian Leslie Newbigin puts it this way: the way we understand human life depends on what conception we have of the human story. So, how did the story of the universe begin? During 1916, Albert Einstein was breaking ground on his theory of general relativity. However, he didn't like where his calculations were leading him, because if his theory was true, it meant that the universe was not eternal, but had a beginning. And fast forward to the present, and major news magazines, Time, Newsweek, and the like, have all ran cover stories on the origin and fate of the universe. When did the universe begin, and when will it end, are 2 of the questions investigated in such articles. The fact that the universe had a beginning and will ultimately die is not even disputed by these reports. And why is that? Well, all modern scientists know that a beginning and ending of the universe are demanded by the second law of thermodynamics the expanding universe as discovered by Edwin Hubble and other scientists, radiation from the Big Bang, great galaxy seeds, and finally, Einstein's theory of general relativity. The stage of our grand story, the universe, did not only have a beginning, but it is also beautifully designed. The universe is specifically tweaked to enable life on Earth. The Earth is a little oasis in a vast and hostile universe because of the numerous unlikely and interconnected life-supporting conditions that have been specially engineered into the universe to support life on this planet. Nobel laureate Arno Penzias, co-discoverer of the radiation afterglow, put it this way: astronomy leads us to a unique event, a universe created out of nothing and delicately balanced to provide the exact conditions required to support life. In the absence of an absurdly improbable accident, the observations of modern science seem to suggest an underlying, one might say, supernatural plan, or as I would put it, supernatural story. The scientific story of the universe begins with a miracle, the beginning of space, time, and matter from nothing, the unknown. We know the unknown cause must be self-existent, timeless, non-spatial, and immaterial, since the unknown cause created space-time and matter. The unknown cause must be outside of space, time, and matter. In other words, the cause, the unknown cause, must be without limits or infinite, unimaginably powerful to create the entire universe out of nothing, supremely intelligent to design the universe with such incredible precision, and personal to choose to convert a state of nothingness into the time-space material universe. An impersonal force doesn't have the ability to make choices. These characteristics of the unknown cause are exactly the characteristics that theists have historically ascribed to God. The uncaused first cause, the unlimited limited, the uncreated creator and sustainer of all things God is the author of the story of the universe. God's fingerprints aren't only on the universe, but they are firmly engraved into life itself. Astronomer Fred Hoyle had his atheism shaken by the anthropic principle and the complexity he saw in life. He concluded, a common sense interpretation of the facts suggests that a super intellect has monkeyed with physics, biology, and chemistry, and that there are no blind forces worth speaking about in nature. While Hoyle wasn't sure just who this super intellect is, he recognized that the fine-tuning of the universe and life itself requires intelligence. The stage has been set. We know who the author and director of the story of the universe is. But where's the story going? In other words, where is the story being directed to? What if the author of the story of the universe wrote himself into the story to tell us that very thing? So from the creation of the first life and eventually human life, let's fast forward to the life that turned the world upside down and split time in two by initiating the Common Era, the person solely responsible for the dramatic advancement of everything we care about most. That's education, science, music, art, medication, and morality. The following is taken from Person of Interest, a book by J. Warner Wallace, where he attempts to demonstrate that Jesus is the central figure of human history, even in a world without a Bible. He was born in a tiny, irrelevant town in the Roman Empire and raised in another small village. He had to walk from one town to the next, and as an adult, he never traveled more than 200 miles from the town where he was born. He didn't have any of the resources people use today to make an impact. No social media platform, no podcast audience, no clever videos, and no website. He didn't even have the resources people used in the first century to make an impact. He never held a political office. never ruled a nation, never led an army, never authored a book. His family was insignificant. The locals suspected he was an illegitimate son. His mother was a poor peasant woman. His father couldn't afford much. He never received an expensive education. He never married, never had children, never owned a home of his own, and didn't possess much more than the clothes on his back. As an adult, his own brother was suspicious of his ministry, a work that ended after just 3 short years. Public opinion turned against him. Most of his followers abandoned him. One disciple betrayed him, another denied him. He was rejected by the religious, hunted by the powerful, mocked, and unjustly persecuted by his enemies. He suffered an unfair trial, was publicly humiliated, brutally beaten, and unduly executed in the most horrific way. Even then, the few followers who remained had to borrow a grave to bury him. Yet, this is the man who changed history and transformed the most important and revered aspects of human culture. How is it possible that a single man, a man by the name of Jesus, could have this kind of impact? Well, what if the same God who created the universe and set the story of the universe in motion actually decided to weave himself into that story? Wouldn't we expect that he would have an impact that's not only limited to a holy book or people that believe in that book, but that he would have an impact that would resemble the climax of the story of the universe, reaching and reshaping our entire world? And Jesus, who died to a broken world and rose from the grave, creating a better world, invites us to rise after our deaths into a completely healed and transformed world with completely healed and transformed bodies. All we have to do is seek Him with humility, discover Him, and love Him with boldness and self-sacrifice, so that His blessing may spread throughout the whole world. In other words, we have to seek and share the true, the good, and the beautiful, so that eventually we'll live in a world that's truly good and truly beautiful.